Have you ever stopped to think about how the very ground beneath your feet, or maybe those lines we draw on maps, how they actually shape, well, pretty much everything in our world, from, the food you eat to the big conflicts you see in the news? So much of it really traces back to geography. Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're plunging right into this fascinating world of physical and political divisions. We're going to explore how global landscapes are formed, how nations get carved out, and then we'll zoom in for a really close look at India, including the very complex situation in Jammu and Kashmir. Our mission, really, for this deep dive is to unpack how landforms, water bodies, countries, borders, they aren't just abstract things on a map you glance at. No, they are powerful forces. They influence everything from climate and farming to trade and, of course, international relations. We want to show you how physical geography often dictates where people end up living, what they do for a living, and then how political boundaries define nations, resources, and sometimes, yeah, even ignite conflicts. And all this amazing insight we're drawing from comes from a detailed guide. It covers the political and physical divisions of the world in India, prepared by Jinnah Kashmiri for Wordswood. It's a really structured, in-depth look at these, frankly, crucial aspects of geography and geopolitics. So, okay, if geography is the foundation, where do we start peeling back these layers? Let's zoom right out to the whole planet. What are those foundational physical elements shaping our global story?
Well, starting big picture, the Earth's landmass is generally divided into 7 continents. That covers about, 29% of the planet's surface. But what's truly remarkable, I think, is the sheer diversity of major landforms within these huge areas. Take mountains, for example. They're not just pretty peaks, right?
Yeah.
These are massive elevated formations born from tectonic plates grinding together. And they act as huge climate walls and storehouses for resources. Think of the Himalayas in Asia, Mount Everest and all that. They don't just stand there. They dramatically influence monsoon patterns, pushing vital rains across huge parts of Asia. Or look at the Andes in South America, another immense range, incredibly rich in minerals. That dictates where communities can settle, what resources they can tap into.
So these aren't just natural wonders, they're literal game changers for, well, billions of people. What about plateaus, those high, flat lands? Do they have a similar, maybe less obvious impact?
Oh, absolutely they do. Plateaus are these elevated, quite flat regions, often formed by really ancient volcanic activity or tectonic uplift. The Tibetan Plateau in Asia, for instance, it's famously called the roof of the world. Huge area, about the size of Western Europe, just to give you a sense of scale. And India's own Deccan Plateau. It's a vast mineral treasury, rich in everything from coal to iron ore, fueling industries across the country.
Yeah.
And then you have kind of the opposite, the plains. These are the low-lying, often incredibly fertile areas, just perfect for agriculture. The Indo-Gangetic plains in India are so vital, they support, get this, about 50% of India's population.
50%? Wow.
Yeah, that's hundreds of millions of people whose lives are directly tied to how productive that soil is. Then on the drier side, you get deserts, defined by very little rainfall, less than 250 millimeters a year usually. The Sahara in Africa, for example, that's the largest hot desert on Earth. But they're not all hot, The Gobi in Asia is a vast, cold desert. And these arid landscapes, despite being harsh, they've really forced human ingenuity, leading to unique ways to survive. And sometimes, surprisingly, they hold rich mineral deposits too.
It's incredible how varied the land itself is. But our planet is mostly water, isn't it? How do the big water bodies fit into this global picture? What role do they play?
Right? Water bodies, they're really the blue heartbeat of the planet, fundamentally shaping life and commerce. Rivers, for instance, they are the lifelines of civilizations. Think about the Nile in Africa. It sustained Egypt for millennia, providing that crucial irrigation. The Amazon in South America is not just the longest. It carries more water than any other river on Earth. Supports incredible biodiversity. Rivers give us water, transport, energy. Lakes play a huge role too, providing fresh water, supporting fisheries, tourism. The Caspian Sea, straddling Asia and Europe, that's the world's largest lake, technically. And then you have Lake Baikal in Russia, the deepest lake on Earth, holds a staggering amount of the world's fresh water. And of course, the oceans, covering over 70% of Earth's surface. They act as global climate regulators, massive ecosystems for marine life, and really the superhighways for international trade, the Pacific, the Atlantic, the Indian Ocean. Then you have seas, which are smaller, often more enclosed, like the Mediterranean or the South China Sea, each with its own critical geopolitical importance because of where they sit.
It sounds like oceans really are the superhighways. So are there specific narrow waterways, straits, that are super important for global trade?
Absolutely. These straits are incredibly significant. They're often choke points, really, controlling major global trade routes. Imagine a single narrow passage like the Malacca Strait connecting the Indian Ocean to the Pacific. An incredible 80,000 ships pass through there every year.
80,000. Wow.
Yeah. So a disruption in just that one strait, it wouldn't just be an inconvenience. It could literally choke global supply chains, affecting everything from, your coffee to the price of oil. It's like the kind of unseen power these maritime corridors hold. We also have islands and peninsulas, of course. They hold their own strategic and economic significance, from massive islands like Greenland or Madagascar to peninsulas like the Arabian or the Indian Peninsula. They're important for tourism, fisheries, sometimes military bases, cultural exchange, lots of things. And underneath it all, what's actually driving a lot of this geography we see are these huge invisible forces, the tectonic plates. The Earth's crust is made up of several major plates, and they're constantly shifting, causing earthquakes, volcanoes. The Ring of Fire around the Pacific Ocean is the prime example. That's where something like 80% of the world's major earthquakes happen.
What really stands out here is how these physical features, like you said, the Himalayas affecting monsoons, or the Andes being full of minerals, they aren't just static parts of the landscape. They actively shape global strategies, geopolitics, even where people settle and how economies develop. It's fascinating. So, okay, with all these natural features laid out, how do we, as humans, organize ourselves on top of that? How do our political divisions interact with, or sometimes, yeah, clash with, that natural world to define how we interact globally?
Well, that's the crucial next layer, isn't it? The world today has around 195 recognized countries, each with its own human-made boundaries. These political boundaries, they get defined by treaties, sometimes historical events, or occasionally they just follow natural geographical features like a river or a mountain range. But, and this is key, these boundaries also create disputed regions, lots of them. And these often become flashpoints. Take Kashmir, for instance. It's territory contested between India, Pakistan, and China. There's a line of control, the Lost Sea, serving as a temporary, often very tense, boundary. Or look at Palestine. The ongoing Israel-Palestinian Authority conflict over areas like Gaza and the West Bank is incredibly complex. Then there's the South China Sea, multiple countries disputing islands and maritime routes. And what's critical there is that a huge chunk of global trade, maybe 20%, passes right through those waters. So any instability is a global concern.
Right. That's where it gets really interesting and, frankly, worrying. These lines on a map aren't just lines, they are genuine flashpoints. They have real, tangible impacts on global trade, security, international relations.
Exactly. And, in an effort to manage all these interactions, we've created major international organizations. The United Nations, for example, with almost 200 member states. It works constantly to promote peace, human rights, development around the world. Then you have regional blocs like the European Union. That's allowed for amazing free trade and movement among its members. Many even share a single currency, the euro. These organizations are just critical for diplomacy, trying to resolve disputes, fostering economic growth, basically trying to create some order out of potential chaos. And when we talk about specific lines on the map, there are several really important international boundaries, ones that have profoundly shaped history and still influence geopolitics today. The Radcliffe Line, for instance, drawn in 1947, it abruptly divided India and Pakistan, led to one of the largest, most tragic mass migrations in human history. Then there's the Durand Line separating Pakistan and Afghanistan, still a source of dispute today. The Line of Control, or LOC, that 740-kilometer line in Jammu and Kashmir, divides Indian and Pakistan-administered areas, remains a constant conflict zone. And of course, the 38th parallel, still starkly dividing North and South Korea, a very visible frozen legacy of the Cold War.
It's so clear how these boundaries define sovereignty, but also influence everything from trade patterns to active, ongoing conflicts and even daily life for people near them. So let's bring it closer to home now. How do these same forces, the physical geography and the political lines, play out within India, one of the world's most populous and diverse nations?
India is a perfect case study, really, covering a huge area, 3.29 million square kilometers. It's got such diverse landforms, and they deeply influence its climate, its agriculture, its entire economy, a nation of incredible contrasts. So, India's physical divisions. You have to start with the Himalayas and the Trans-Himalayas up north. Majestic doesn't even cover it. These ranges stretch for thousands of kilometers across 5 states, home to peaks like Kanchenjunga, India's highest. They aren't just scenic barriers, they block those cold Central Asian winds. But crucially, they trigger the monsoon rains that are the lifeblood for much of the country. They're also vital for hydropower, think of the Bakra Dam. And they harbor amazing biodiversity, like snow leopards, rare medicinal plants.
Wow. So much more than just mountains.
Definitely. Then, south of the mountains, you get the vast northern plains, formed by the rich silt deposited by rivers like the Ganga, the Brahmaputra, the Indus. These plains cover about 7 lakh square kilometers, and they're so incredibly fertile. They support, as I mentioned, about half of India's population.
Still staggering to think about.
It really is. Hundreds of millions of people living and farming on this land, high population density, especially in states like Bihar. Then there's the Peninsular Plateau. It covers a huge area, about 16 lakh square kilometers. It's an ancient landmass, volcanic rocks, incredibly rich in minerals, coal, iron ore, bauxite, foundational for India's industry. Different kinds of soils, too, black soils, red soils. And along India's long coastline, about 7,500 kilometers, you find the coastal plains. The eastern side is wider, known for its river deltas, great for rice cultivation, lots of fisheries. The western side is narrower, rockier, but hosts vital port cities like Mumbai, Kochi, key for maritime trade. Out west, you have the Thar Desert, mostly in Rajasthan. About 200,000 square kilometers, sandy, very little rain. But even there, life adapts. They grow hardy crops like millets, rear camels, and increasingly, there's wind energy potential, and large-scale irrigation projects like the Indira Gandhi Canal have brought water, allowing cultivation in some areas. And we can't forget India's islands. The Andaman and Nicobar chain and the Bay of Bengal, over 500 islands, stunning coral reefs, unique tribal populations. And Lakshadweep in the Arabian Sea, a cluster of about 36 coral islands, important for fisheries, coconuts, tourism. And of course, India's rivers and lakes are its lifelines. The Ganga, over 2,500 kilometers long, supports maybe 40% of the population directly or indirectly. Then you have the Brahmaputra, the Indus system. Lakes like Wooler in Jammu and Kashmir, the largest freshwater lake in India, are crucial. Chilika Lake in Odisha is a huge brackish water lagoon. Loktak Lake in Manipur is famous for its unique floating islands, the Fumdis, all vital ecosystems and resources. You can really see how these physical divisions dictate regional planning agriculture focused on the plains, hydropower potential in the Himalayas, tourism concentrated in coastal areas and islands.
It really drives home how much geography shapes daily life and economic strategy. Okay, so overlaying this incredible physical diversity, what about India's political divisions? How is this massive, diverse nation structured and bordered?
Well, India's political structure is also quite dynamic. As of now, the country is divided into 28 states and 8 union territories, or UTs. States like Uttar Pradesh or Tamil Nadu have their own elected governments handling most local affairs. Union territories like Delhi or Chandigarh are administered more directly by the central government. It's a federal structure designed to manage this vast diversity. And there have been some significant recent changes, particularly concerning Jammu and Kashmir. The Jammu and Kashmir Reorganization Act back in 2019 was a major step. It bifurcated the former state of Jammu and Kashmir into 2 new union territories, one called Jammu and Kashmir and the other called Ladakh. That became effective late 2019.
Right, that revoked Article 370 as well, didn't it?
Exactly. That was part of the same legislative move. It changed the administrative setup significantly, aiming for more central oversight. Jammu and Kashmir UT has Srinagar as its summer capital, Jammu as winter. Ladakh UT has Leh as its capital. Another change was in 2020, when 2 existing UTs, Dadra and Nagar Haveli and Daman and Diu, were merged into a single union territory. These administrative changes definitely have an impact. India also shares land borders with 7 neighboring countries. It's a huge length, over 15,000 kilometers in total. The longest border is actually with Bangladesh, over 4,000 kilometers. We also share very long and strategically important borders with Pakistan and China. Then there's Nepal, Bhutan, Myanmar, and a small stretch with Afghanistan via Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, or POCA, and of course maritime boundaries with Sri Lanka, the Maldives, Indonesia. And these borders are defined by specific boundary lines, many with complex histories and ongoing significance. We mentioned the Radcliffe Line earlier, dividing India and Pakistan at 47, immense human cost. Then there's the McMahon Line, about 890 kilometers, mostly along Arunachal Pradesh. It separates India and China, but China disputes its validity. This dispute was a major factor leading to the 1962 Sino-Indian War. Again, the line of control, the Law Sea in Jammu and Kashmir. That 740-kilometer de facto border established after the 1971 war, it remains a heavily militarized, volatile zone.
Yeah, this really raises that crucial question again. How do these lines on the map impact the daily lives of millions, especially in those border areas? It's clear these borders influence trade. You mentioned the India-Bangladesh trade, worth billions annually. but they also shape security realities, like the constant tensions along the Lost Sea.
Absolutely. And that's why zooming into a region like Jammu and Kashmir specifically is so insightful. Its physical geography and its political divisions are incredibly intertwined. They influence agriculture, tourism, and its huge strategic importance, particularly, as you say, after those 2019 changes. So physically, within Jammu and Kashmir, you again see the power of the Himalayas and Trans-Himalayas shaping distinct subregions. The Kashmir Valley itself, formed by the Holum River, is famous for its fertile alluvial soils, perfect for growing rice, apples, and that world-renowned saffron.
Kashmiri saffron, right, very prized.
Exactly. Then you have the Jammu Hills, part of the Lesser Himalayas, characterized more by forests and orchards. And then there's Ladakh, way up in the Trans-Himalayas, a high-altitude, cold desert. Very sparse vegetation, so barley is a traditional staple crop. But its stark, dramatic beauty has made it a major draw for tourism. The region's rivers and lakes are also vital. The Jhelum provides irrigation and hydropower. The Chenab River hosts the important Baglihar Dam. The Tawi River is often called the lifeline of Jammu City. Lakes like Wular, India's largest freshwater lake, play a role in flood control. And Dal Lake and Manasbal Lake are absolutely central to tourism, the iconic houseboats, the stunning scenery. So these fertile valleys really drive the horticulture sector. Apples alone make up a huge chunk of J&K's income, maybe 70%. And tourism is just a vital economic pillar for thousands of families. Now, politically, post-2019, the big change was the bifurcation into two union territories. You have the UT of Jammu and Kashmir with 20 districts, and those alternating capitals, Srinagar in summer, Jammu in winter, and the UT of Ladakh with just two districts, Leh and Kargil, and Leh as the capital. This brought in a more centralized governance structure, with lieutenant governors appointed by the central government overseeing administration. And the borders of this region, as we've touched on, are extremely sensitive. It borders Pakistan along that 740 kilometers line of control, constantly active, often tense. It also borders China along the line of actual control, or LAC, which includes the disputed Aksai Chin area claimed by India but controlled by China.
So the geopolitical significance is just immense.
Undeniably, lock tensions mean a heavy, permanent military presence. And disputes along the LAC, like the serious clash in the Galwan Valley in 2020, directly impact the wider India-China relationship. It's a critical frontier. If we look quickly at the demography, based on the last census data from 2011, you see huge contrasts. Overall population density was around 124 people per square kilometer, but that hides massive variations. Srinagar district was over 2,000, while parts of Ladakh were down to just 3 people per square kilometer. Literacy was around 67%. The sex ratio was lower than the national average, about 889 females per 1,000 males, and it's predominantly rural, over 72%. Ethnically and linguistically, it's very diverse too. You have Kashmiris, Dogras, Ladakhis, Gujars, Bakerwals, speaking various languages. Actually, 22 official languages are recognized across India, reflecting this kind of diversity. Its economic role, as we said, hinges on horticulture, maybe 2 million tons of apples annually, and tourism, with places like Dal Lake drawing millions of visitors. But its strategic location means a constant military and diplomatic focus. And there are challenges. Those border tensions, the fact that only about 10% of the total land area is actually suitable for farming, and environmental sensitivity, especially in the high mountains.
It really is fascinating how a region's physical features, the mountains, the valleys, the rivers, so directly shape its population patterns, its economy, and then how those are just completely intertwined with political decisions, borders, and strategic importance. It's like a living case study of everything we've been discussing. Okay, before we wrap up, let's just quickly touch on the tools we use to visualize all this. Maps. They're not all the same, are they? How do physical and political maps differ?
No, they certainly aren't the same. And understanding the difference is really key to, well, decoding our world using them. Physical and political maps serve very distinct purposes. They give us complementary ways of looking at geography and governance. So, physical maps. Their main focus is on the natural features: mountains, rivers, plains, deserts, oceans, lakes. On these maps, you'll see colors used to show elevation, typically deep browns for high mountains, greens for low-lying plains, blues for water bodies, maybe yellows or tans for deserts. Sometimes they show tectonic plate boundaries too, maybe with dotted lines. And these maps are invaluable for things like studying climate patterns, how mountains affect rainfall, for instance, or assessing where agriculture might be most suitable, like the black soil shown on the Deccan Plateau, or understanding potential natural disaster risks like earthquake zones in the Himalayas.
Right, focusing on the Earth itself.
Exactly. Then you have political maps. Their focus shifts to human-made boundaries. They show countries, states, or provinces, major cities, capitals, and importantly, they often highlight disputed territories. You'll see borders marked clearly, usually solid lines for internationally recognized boundaries, maybe dotted or dashed lines for disputed ones, or administrative divisions within a country. Cities are marked with dots, often sized by population. Administrative areas like states or countries are usually shown in different colors, just to make them easy to distinguish.
So their uses are quite different then.
Completely different. You'd use a political map to understand governance, how budgets might be allocated by state, for example, or for planning elections within specific districts, or for analyzing geopolitics, tracking border disputes, understanding trade blocs, navigating international relations, like studying the India-Pakistan border situation. So the key differences really come down to content, color coding, and purpose. Physical maps show terrain, use colors for elevation, land cover, and help us understand the natural environment and resource distribution. Political maps show administrative units and borders, use colors to distinguish territories, and help us understand governance, sovereignty, and geopolitical issues. If you connect this back to the bigger picture, physical maps might inform where you build a dam, based on river flow and topography. Political maps guide how you allocate resources across different states or manage security along a sensitive border. They really provide complementary information, not redundant. One tells you of the stage, the other about the players and the rules they've drawn up.
That's a great way to put it. What an incredible journey we've taken, really, through the visible and invisible lines that shape our world. We've seen how the Earth's physical features, from those towering Himalayas to fertile river plains and vast oceans, and the political boundaries we humans draw, both globally and within India, especially in a complex place like Jammu and Kashmir, how they fundamentally shape ecosystems, economies, and geopolitics. Understanding this intricate interplay, this dance between the natural world and human organization, feels absolutely crucial for making sense of our world today. So maybe the next time you look at a map, whether it's showing a huge mountain range or just a neat line dividing two countries, maybe consider this. How much of what we call society is really just our response to the land we happen to live on, and how much is shaped purely by the lines we choose to draw? We really encourage you to observe the physical and political geography of your own region, or maybe just pay closer attention to it in the news you consume. Think about how those divisions, natural and man-made, might be influencing your own life and the world around you.